I'm Danny V of DMV Films. Let me tell you a story that you'll enjoy.
The nomadic Arabs who make up the RSF's base of support have long felt looked down upon by the elite in the nation's centre and would love to rule their own ethnic statelet in Darfur. Unfortunately, Darfur is already home to other ethnicities. The RSF sees these settled black communities as something unclean and less than human, something that needs to be cleansed.
Before you even blink, someone else in Darfur is dead, burned alive in their home, shot in the back while fleeing. Children, women, the elderly, slaughtered because of who they are. And yet, the world says nothing. Not a hashtag, not a protest, because those lives, black, African, Muslim lives, don't fit the narrative. And why is that? Because the world is too busy obsessing over Israel, too busy blaming Jews. Let's watch.
Right now, as you watch this video, there's genocide unfolding. It's one that's taking place far away from headlines, seemingly being ignored by the world. This genocide isn't hidden. The men behind it video themselves undertaking ethnic killings and uploading the footage to social media. Journalists on the ground report on the horrors of cleansing and mass expulsions, while researchers track the razing of homes and the proliferation of mass graves via satellite. And yet, society as a whole just doesn't seem to care. Ask even relatively informed members of the public about the persecution of the Masalit or Zakawa, and you'll likely just get a blank stare, because these atrocities are not taking place in the Middle East or on the battlefields of Eastern Europe. Instead, they're taking place amid the great ignored conflict of our time, a war that has seen whole cities emptied of their inhabitants and burned, that has seen millions flee into exile and starvation reduce thousands upon thousands to eating grass and leaves just to survive. We are talking, of course, about Sudan, a war the UN has called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The nomadic Arabs who make up the RSF's base of support would love to rule their own ethnic statelet in Darfur. Unfortunately, Darfur is already home to other ethnicities. The RSF sees these settled black communities as something unclean and less than human, something that needs to be cleansed. And the extreme actions that they've taken to effect that cleansing are the basis for the charge of genocide. At least 150,000 people have been killed, at least 15 million people have been forced to flee their homes, while 30 million are struggling to feed themselves. The government in Port Sudan is also fueling the nationwide hunger crisis by refusing to allow aid into areas controlled by the RSF. They've burned crops, looted entire cities, a maternity hospital bombed, causing the roof to fall onto babies inside, refugee camps shelled, mass executions, streets filled with corpses, aid blocked, systematic sexual abuse, and other war crimes. In Darfur, mass ethnic killings taking place. Civilians are, quote, actively targeted by the RSF and its allies, notably on the basis of their ethnicity. RSF fighters talking openly about a plan to, quote, clean El Fasher, a statement taken to mean the removal or destruction of its non-Arab communities. Earlier this year, the RSF overran Zamzam, a sprawling refugee camp just outside El Fasher. For roughly 4 days, the paramilitaries rampaged through the camp, firing machine guns into crowds, looting and burning homes, and carrying out the mass sexual assault of women and girls. RSF and its allies were asking people in Zamzam if they belonged to the Zakawa, and if they did, they would kill them. The violence culminated in a large-scale massacre on June the 15th, when the RSF and its allies opened fire on a kilometers-long convoy of civilians desperately trying to flee, escorted by Masalit fighters. The RSF and militias pursued, rounded up, and shot men, women, and children who ran through the streets. As to how many died, baseline minimum 10,000. For comparison, the 1995 Srebrenica massacre that shook the international community into action over the Bosnian War, 8,000. But the RSF and their allies have the intent genocide has been and/or is being committed there. The RSF, which grew out of the Janjaweed militias that carried out the original Darfur genocide 20 years ago. Nomadic Arab fighters slaughtered members of the sedentary Zakawa, Masalit, and Fur communities. These killings saw Sudan's then dictator Omar al-Bashir indicted on genocide charges at the ICC. The Janjaweed have returned in a new form to finish the job. The Sudanese government in Port Sudan lodged a genocide case at the International Court of Justice against the United Arab Emirates, which has been supplying the RSF with weapons and military support throughout the conflict. But the ICJ ruled that it has no jurisdiction, and over everything hovers the spectre of famine. Parts of North Darfur and some sections of the Nuba Mountains do already be in famine. The number of those facing starvation is only set to grow. It is fundamentally insane that the world at large is ignoring this genocide. And we really mean the whole world. The EU, the UK, the US, the African Union, the Global South, the BRICS, China. None of these seem to do much more than occasionally shake their heads and mutter about how sad it all is. As Alan Boswell of International Crisis Group put it to Foreign Policy magazine last year, you can't help but watch the level of focus on crises like Gaza and Ukraine and wonder what just 5% of that energy could have done in a context like Sudan, and how many thousands, tens of thousands of lives it could have saved.
It's time we talk about the double standard. Not a political opinion, not a defense of every military decision, but the sheer immoral imbalance in how the world treats Israel versus every other country on earth. And therefore right now, tens of thousands of innocent civilians, Muslims, are being butchered. Not by Jews, not by Israelis, but by Arab militias. The rapid support forces, the same people who committed genocide in the early 2000s, are doing that again. And the UN, silent. The universities, silent. The protesters screaming free Palestine, nowhere to be found. In Yemen, over 300,000 dead, many from war, many from famine. Where's the outrage? Where are the boycotts of its supporters around the world? Where are the boycotts of Sudan, or the Houthis, or of Iran? Where are the boycotts in Yemen, over 300,000 dead, many from war, many from famine? Where's the outrage? Where are the boycotts of Saudi Arabia, or of the Houthis, or of Iran? In Ethiopia, hundreds of thousands killed in Tigray. Mass intimate violation, starvation, forced displacement. But no one's flooded Times Square. No one blocked bridges. Now look at Israel, a country under attack, surrounded by enemies. October 7, 2023, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Babies beheaded, families burned alive, women violated intimately. And how did the world respond? By blaming the Jews. They told us to de-escalate. They told us we were committing genocide. Told us we didn't have the right to fight back against terrorists hiding behind children in hospitals and in schools. Let me tell you something. Hamas wants civilians to die. That is their strategy. They shout from mosques and they run into tunnels under playgrounds because they know the world will blame us for every Palestinian death. Even when it's Hamas pulling the trigger, Israel drops leaflets, makes phone calls, aborts airstrikes when a child is spotted. What other army on earth does that? And yes, civilians die. But to call it genocide while ignoring actual documented genocides happening this very second in Africa and the Middle East, this is not human rights. This is not justice. This is anti-Semitism. When Jews bleed, the world shrugs. When Jews defend themselves, the world screams. We are a nation of life. Torah is the tree of life. We value every soul, even those who hate us. But the world insists on only seeing Jewish hands when it wants someone to blame. The problem isn't Israel. The problem is the world. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and click on one of the videos above for more.